YTPC. Brothers and sisters of the Briar, great to see you. It's been a while. I thought I might go ahead and share a review. Pretty sure this one's out there quite a bit. In fact, I know a few of you, David, that actually really love this stuff, which is the Sir Walter Raleigh Aero. It's good stuff. Sir Walter Raleigh is good. It's an everyday sip. It really is. It's pretty mild, but yeah, Sir Walter Raleigh, good stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and pack that in here. Suppose we can kind of chat about whatever. Lots been going on in the months. Good stuff. It's funny too, because it's anybody who has watched any of my videos, I try not to get too much into tin note, because it oftentimes does not translate into what you're going to taste when you sip it. But I like the tin note on this one, and I like it because it's got that aromatic kind of a topping, casing kind of a smell, but yet you still really smell that rich, sweet component from the tobacco. Like, it doesn't overpower. It's a beautiful marriage of the two, and when you crack it open, it has such a great smell. But anyway, so go ahead and pack some of this in here. I mean, it is great stuff. I don't know if I can get you to. There it is. Oh, I was almost there. There it is. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, I will say that I oftentimes will put I'll put a little bit of, just a couple drops of distilled water. I'll take a jar like this, and I'll spread it out over some parchment paper, and just literally just a little bit of a spritz of some distilled water, not much. And like I live out in the desert. Like, it is literally 0% humidity here for most of the summer. In fact, it's been dangerously dry. I'll plug in a couple photos of what we've been dealing with for wildfires out here in the Utah area. It's been pretty potent, pretty dry. Anyways, enough about the weather talk. Let's fire this up. Good stuff. It is a mild blend. And when I say mild, I mean like it's why I everyday smoke. I mean, all day smoke, right? Every day, all day, whatever. The point is that it's one of those that, because it's so mild, you could sip on it and not feel as though, like, you've had enough. Because the flavor profile on it isn't. It's just not that pungent. It's not that prominent. It's not something that's going to be like, yeah, okay, no more. Which most aromatics, that's the case for me. I will say that the burley gives it that nuttiness. Yeah, really just nuttiness, and then just an overall sweetness. This has Virginia in it, so you're getting that natural sweetness from the Virginia. And it's an Aero, so I mean, and you can tell more so again on the tin note than when you're sipping it. I think that it has some type of casing with it. I don't know what that is. Suppose I should probably look if they tell you. Some people, like, it depends on the company. Some of them are kind of ambiguous about like what exactly they put in there. I'm getting attacked by a hummingbird all day. I have had a hummingbird back and forth to my window, like all day, like every 5 or 10 minutes, and his feeder's filled. I don't know what his issue is. He likes the Sir Walter Raleigh, I think. But yeah, so I mean, that's the blend, right? I mean, I could drag it out and be like, oh, you know, it's got all this and that, and but I think that's the appeal for me, and probably for a lot of people who sip this. It's not complex. But I do like the fact that that the rum note, right, isn't too much of a tobacco rum note. But this one does not. Again, it is slightly aromatic, so it does give like that nice aroma. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Briar. Russia, Ukraine. Even though it's a geopolitical topic, I'm not trying to politicize. So, but I'm just curious. You know, definitely put in the comments what your thoughts are on it. It's a far more complex situation than most of us, even here in the West, really know. I mean, I'll be honest, most people, if I try to have a conversation about it delicately and with those in the audience that I know can handle a mature conversation when it goes into those kind of realms. But a lot of them, I mean, they just, even just discussing, like, people think Russia and they think, like, you know, they still have the USSR in their mind, right? I mean, in fairness, it was like yesterday, right? I mean, you're talking in the 90s that it started to fully dissolve into different republics and so forth. So, but yeah, I mean, most people still see it as like still a communist country and so forth, and Putin's this ruthless dictator who wants it to be a communism again, and it's like, that's right there to always, when it starts going that way, it's like, you probably aren't very well read on the nation or the Federation, as Putin was highly against the whole communistic approach and was about the democracy. Don't get me wrong, I don't think any politician is in the framework of not being a politician. But with that said, it's an interesting ordeal. But regardless, love to hear your thoughts. You know, I personally, and again, this is just my opinion, so don't eat me up in the comment section and nobody get hurt over this. Everybody takes everything so serious. It's personal. Everybody takes everything so personal. But I do think it's interesting that we in the West, when I say that, I don't really so much even mean the citizens of the United States and the Western countries. I think it's more just, again, the governing bodies. But it's interesting how, you know, for sure, our political leaders can look with such heavy disparagement on what occurred with Russia going into Ukraine, with the backstory of, you know, all the way back since the late 90s. There's been a lot of decrees and a lot of charters that were written up between the nations, and it has always been on the table, and it's even been adopted by the Western nations when it was put on the table that, you know, they meaning Russia never has wanted the NATO encroachment on their borders, rightfully so. NATO has its power. I mean, it's a powerful organization, it's a powerful concept, and a militarized one at that. And so, sure, they kind of keep it balanced, but money, right? It's all about the money. It's about the green and the greed. And so they are not a impartial, unbiased party. So with that said, you know, with the history of Ukraine, with the history of it being part of the USSR, the way it dissolved, the charters and decrees that were signed when it dissolved, the way it established the right for them to become, you know, almost independent sovereign regions, without the need to go to the central government of Ukraine to do so. So it wasn't until Zelensky and the rest of the team started to push in to that border that it became a problem. That it's NATO and forces and so forth coming to that border and forcing the citizens to basically abandon their Russian heritage that, like, literally just on the books became Ukrainian again. And the history of time was yesterday, right? In the 90s, right? It was not long. It was by force. And so that was, again, care for it, do not care for it. That was the reason for Russia moving its troops back during Obama's administration to the border, saying, hey, like, this is not okay. NATO's moving in. They're pressing the Russian people of Russian heritage that are in that region. With all that said, my point being that I think is kind of, there's some hypocrisy, right? I mean, if we think about it. So we're upset that Russia went in over the borders and pushed back, and, you know, pushed back NATO, pushed back the NATO reinforced army of Ukraine. So it was an insurgency, right? But good gosh, how many times have we done this? I mean, you know, look at Desert Storm. Look at Iraq. I mean, look at the whole Iraqi freedom thing. You know, it was first it had to do with 9/11, and then we realized that was a bunch of Arabs and it had nothing to do with that area. And it was weapons of mass destruction, says Bush, which we all know wasn't. Oddly, we don't really bring up a big stink about it, but that was pretty BS, right? so you know, there's these weapons of mass destruction. Either way, we go in there, we grab the guy, we lynch him, like literally, and overthrow the regime, and you know, power of democracy, because we felt it was the right thing to do to liberate these people from this oppressed leadership. You know, I mean, and Putin's not looking for Zelensky's head. He's just looking to have those areas be back and annexed into that area of Russia, for the rights of those people to be able to remain who they are. I mean, it's an identity. I mean, tell me how many of us don't think, like, oh, I'm a patriot, and what that means to us to be a patriot. If tomorrow somebody drew a line through it and was like, well, guess what, and now you're Canadian. I don't want to speak French. Well, you're going to, or you're going to get arrested. You know what I mean? Like, we would start having a problem with that. But anyway, it's an interesting bit. I'm not saying right, I'm not saying wrong, but I'm a thinker, and I like to think of these things. And admittedly, half the things I think about, I never come to conclusion over. That's okay. It's all right. It's magic and joys of being a human being, right? So we have the power to contemplate, and we should contemplate. Don't stay up at night contemplating. Don't let it ruin your life, but, you know. But I do think, as far as creativity goes, we're not looking good. I mean, we're already not looking good when it comes to that. So few people, even my age, let alone the younger generation, are not well read at all. And just creativity in general just seems to be going to the wayside. My parents are creative. I mean, my father was an architect, and he always did sand castles, and he does wood carvings right now. Has for a while, and they're phenomenal. So that generation had it, and, you know, I still know a handful of people from my generation that are, but less. And then I think it certainly certainly waning. So it's something to be cognizant of, you know, that we don't want to let that go. So those of you who have kiddos or grandkids, or just for your own self-reflection and keeping yourself on point, don't forget to be creative. Don't forget to use that noodle. But yeah, so that is, I mean, that's really it on this blend, ladies and gentlemen. It's basic. I'm just gonna go old school rustic here and just use my fingertip. I don't need to be so polite. But yeah, it's a great blend. I'm not an all-day sipper, so I always say, oh yeah, it's an all-day smoke. Yes, I can understand that it would be, because it's mild. I like it in the summer. I like it when it's warm like this. Today's almost every day is about low to mid 90s here in the summer, this time of year. About this time of year, it should start cooling off as we go into September, but it's that kind of a blend where it's, you know, it's not too overbearing. You know, I you know, as far as nicotine goes, I know that heat can make that worse for people. So, and the flavor, like, it's not a heavy, it's not that chewy smoke. I know there's certain blends that you sip, certainly with arrows, you know, certain aromatics that are just thick, you know, like thick casing, that I wouldn't want in the summertime in the heat. Even a dark fire in Kentucky, like certain stuff is just too much when it's hot. It's a good blend. And I know, David, if you watch this, you would agree. All right, guys, that is it. Hopefully, you know, summer's done, vacations and stuff are done. Things should kind of die down a little bit. Hopefully I can get on and post a little bit more regularly for you all. But until then, be well and happy sipping.